Welcome to Microcap Moments, a podcast from Shore Capital Partners that highlights the stories of founders, investors, and leaders who have taken on the challenge of transforming ideas and small companies into high-growth organizations. The journey of building and scaling a business takes one down many unexpected paths. It's a journey where we learn from our mistakes, fall down often, but have the entrepreneurial grit to pick ourselves up and persevere. Within this series, we will share these stories of success and failure, of the challenges and the rewards faced by those who dare to dream big. And through their lessons learned, we hope to inspire others who are on a similar journey of becoming, growing, and leading.
In this episode, I talk with Devenee Schumacher, co-founder of SDC Nutrition. Dev's story as a co-founder and really a market maker in the nutrition space during the late 2000s started in her grandma's kitchen. This is where food for her became closely associated with love and family. And as Dev started her own family, put herself through culinary school and deepened her knowledge of food, became a fishmonger, a butcher, and a chef, she also became interested in her own health and wellness. And as it turns out, what was good for Dev was good for a whole new generation of CrossFit athletes, and particularly women who were paying closer attention to nutrition and the science of performance. Dev shares the challenges she faced in sourcing and manufacturing the quality of ingredients she demanded for her products, and how that challenge necessitated a shift in her business from a pure product company to a manufacturer of ingredients and supplements for other companies. Through a couple of decades of growth and scale, setbacks and wins, and a headstrong commitment to nutrition and manufacturing the highest quality ingredients, SDC Nutrition is a far cry from Dev's grandma's kitchen. But the connection between love and nutrition Dev felt there remains at the heart of every ingredient and every product SDC makes.
I grew up dirt poor. We had nothing, and I worked my way to where I was. So did life fast, got married, had kids. I was 19 years old, almost 20, did that, said I can't live this life and put myself through culinary school. I graduated valedictorian, right? So during my schooling, the dean made me go work at the Duquesne Club, which is the #1 city club in the United States. And so I got to work and do some really, really cool stuff. I've cooked for presidents, vice presidents, NFL, NBA, NHL. I've done a lot of really cool things, but I didn't make enough money, right? I had kids and daycare. It didn't have enough money. So they opened up Whole Foods Market in Pittsburgh. So I applied, was hired on the spot. So I went there as a fishmonger, became immersed in all the education, knew everything about seafood, where it came from, all the things. They asked me to move to the meat department to manage it. And I became the first female butcher ever for Whole Foods Market. And while I did that, my husband was in the meat and seafood industry, and one of the long-term businesses of downtown Pittsburgh was going up for sale, and it was Bankovitz Seafoods, and they've been open since the late 1800s. And so it was just a small retail store. You bought fresh fish, fried fish, and it had a deli. And so we purchased that. I ended up leaving Whole Foods Market to run that and become the executive chef there. During that time, I was getting into shape. My business partner now was my trainer. So we were training, living a low glycemic lifestyle. I created cookies and cakes for us to eat, like granola bars and things. That took off like a lightning bolt. I used to bake every single day after work. So we created this whole food bar line, selling maybe 600 bars a week. My kids putting stickers on clamshells, my husband helping me. And then we were like, well, we need a good protein. We're buying EAS out of Sam's Club. We created a protein powder with a company over by Philadelphia. They were the first ones creating sugar for us. We left them, went somewhere else. They were doing the same thing, left them, went somewhere else. They were doing the same thing. But when we found out they were doing it, obviously we did our plant. But in the meantime, since then, so 2018, I moved off grid and lived in the middle of nowhere. I went back to school, became a chemist and a cosmetic formulator. I moved back to Ohio in 2022, went back to school, and I'm a functional nutrition lifestyle practitioner now. And so everything that I've done with my life has all come back to circle of we're like the originator of creating natural products. no colors, no artificial, no anything, no gluten when it wasn't even a thing. Me becoming a formulator was because I didn't want to put this stuff on my skin anymore and it wasn't available. Me becoming a doctor is because I truly feel you can fix your body with food. You don't need all these drugs. A little bit of exercise and eating a little bit of something better is just a better process. And so done a lot, but I still sling supplements every day.
Yeah. So go back to the early days. What drew you to culinary in the first place? Just go back to that basic foundation in food.
My grandmother. Yeah. So we're Italian and everything about our family was food. Everything about our life was food. We never had alcohol or anything of that at any party or family function. It was, where's the cavatelli? Where's the cannoli? Where's all of the food? And the love, right, that came out of my grandmother doing this for her family. That's what it was about. When my parents would drop me off to sleep over grandma's for the weekend or whatever, when you were 4 and below, you sat at the little kids' table right below the fish tank. And she would bring you dough and you'd play with dough and all the things. And once you turned 5, you graduated and you got to go up to the island. And so sometimes you'd sit on the island, but you would learn. She'd take your finger and she'd teach you how to roll the cavatelli, or she'd teach you how to press the pizzelle, or whatever we were doing. My mom is the oldest of 9. So we're the first generation, right? So I've always gone back to that.
How did you think about that evolution for you of going from that love of a grandma's kitchen to nutrition, right? Like I listen to all those, it makes my stomach growl listening to your grandmother's kitchen, but that's a long way from nutrition.
Sure, because she used a lot of sugar and flour, but doing that, so my next step was becoming a chef, right? And so then I took that ability. So when you become a chef, so part of that is learning how to prepare fish in a raw form and cutting meat to a certain degree, but not butchering. And, so my thought was when I go and I became a fishmonger and I became a butcher, what people loved about me was I told them how to cook it. Every customer that came in, they would say like, Devenee, what do I do with this? I have no idea, and I would be able to help them make good things for their families. And if I can impact you, you can impact her and she can impact somebody else. And when you do that over and over, I just think overarching, we can make a difference in this world. And so in between that time, just FYI, when I had my kids, I developed allergies and my allergies were getting worse and worse and worse. So I wasn't able to cook anymore. And so me taking my skill set and being able to offer it and teach others, it just felt like instead of giving them a fish, I taught them how to fish. Yeah. And they're able to fend for themselves eventually.
Did you start studying nutrition differently because of that? And then you mentioned your sports and your training and so forth. But when did you really start looking at the science? Obviously, future version of you becomes a chemist. Mm-hmm. But when did you first and how did you first start thinking about the science?
It was when I was getting control over like my workouts and whatnot. When I started eating low glycemic, I started paying attention to what does sugar do to you? How do foods interact with your body as a whole? And, there wasn't a lot of education behind it. And there wasn't a lot of education out there, but it was really more of understanding how do certain foods impact with your blood sugar and how do I feel and how do they make me feel and how are my workouts being impacted by what I'm doing. And so Sean and I were able to eat a certain way, be able to watch our workouts increase, be able to watch my weight go down and your body transform. And then we did that for the people that he trained. So eventually I was a figurehead practically living in his gym. So we thought of our company name and we designed everything on the treadmill. But it wasn't so much just working out all the time. It was truly what are we ingesting and what is it doing to us? And then as the brand grew, then you meet like all of our ambassadors and our athletes. Then CrossFit started. And when CrossFit started, those individuals were game changers. They really made an impact on natural because they demanded it. And they had a lot of information and science behind them because the type of athlete that they are demanded additional doctoring and therapeutic and just more information on how nutrition impacts their life. And so they truly made a lot of things happen.
How did you get from that place where you were doing things for yourself and with your trainer that were mirroring your needs to launching a product and a business that was facing a market, right? It's one thing you've understood your own body, you're making things that are working for your body. That's a big jump to then start to say, I'm going to put something out to the market for everybody. How did you get from private sort of side of this to a public facing and entrepreneurial venture?
It was our meal replacement bar line. So I was making cakes and cookies for Sean and I. And so when his clients would come to him, they're sitting on the table and they're like, oh, what's this? And he would explain the ingredients and tell them what we were doing. Then they would buy them. And very, very quickly, people were coming in and day out, 6, 12, 18 at a time and purchasing them. And so we literally word of mouth through his clients and who they were telling. And that kind of just grew. And so we were able to educate that base, and then they educated. And so then we brought on more athletes at that time. So it was truly just networking with his clients. And so we kind of expanded that way. And that's when we said, let's create our own protein powder. So that time frame, to put time around it, was 2008. There were no gluten-free foods other than chocolate cake and rice bread. No ethnic food aisle, nothing was available. Fitness, booty camps were just becoming big. Group fitness for women was just becoming big. When you walked into a GNC, it was very male-centric, right? Huge biceps on the labels, big greasy abs on the labels. And when you walked in the door, it was all those big 5-pound tubs, and women would walk in. There was no wellness, right? There was capsules and tablets, but not like there is today. There was no wellness. There was no condition specific. You walked in and it was testosterone and protein, and women were like, I don't want to look like this. And they still say that, I don't want to look like this.
Were those your earliest adopters then? Were women?
Yes. So when we said, let's develop a protein powder, we said, okay. And when we developed it, it was for women. It was a fun About Time logo, and About Time stood for, it's about time you have good ingredients and great taste all wrapped up in one. Because back then it was, if you had good ingredients, it was a horrible taste. Or if you had a great taste, it was horrible ingredients. So we created the best of both worlds and made it gluten-free. And so we were able to go to women and be like, it's okay. And it's unisex. You can give this to your kids. You can give this. We educated how children, especially in sports, needed protein, not Fritos. Like, you need protein. So
you mentioned before when we were talking that you had challenges, just so that anybody listening can have a sense of what the market really looked like. It's to think of the 2025 market, it's a very different thing than what you're describing. But so you had that market challenge of GNC being the central thing, and you go in, you bulk and muscle and mass and all of these kinds of things on the shelves, but you ran into challenges in the manufacturing side as well. So can you talk a little bit about that, just so anybody listening can understand that even the supply chain and all of that was not matured yet either?
Very, very limited. So even before supply chain, people like GNC, they didn't understand natural. So our first challenge started there because we sold our product to GNC. And I would say maybe in 9 months, they came to us and said, we have to give this to the franchisee side because we don't understand it. We don't know how to sell it. And so that's how we got connected with the franchisee system over there. But when we launched this, you're absolutely correct. We were so limited in raw materials. Our challenges were, yes, we have stevia to use. We have some natural coloring. We had beetroot and beta carotene, but there was nothing creative like there is now. So as we grew as a manufacturer and tried to be creative, and Sean and I knew a lot about food in general because we would just read and learn a lot about food, we requested this from manufacturers. And so as we requested and sent it out there, we helped those companies become more creative. We created demand for better materials. And then as the world started catching on, that demand grew greater and greater and greater and greater. And now look at the grocery stores. Yeah. You have entire aisles dedicated to gluten-free. And, from 2008 to have 2 products in gluten-free to 2025 to have endless foods. Yeah. 2008, those 2 products weren't that great tasting. And now today you have no taste difference between a Chips Ahoy cookie or if it was a gluten-free cookie. Yeah. Everything's very similar in taste. You're not giving anything up anymore to choose a better lifestyle.
Part of that quality story, too, was part of your shift to manufacturing. So you started by making your own products, but then figured out that what you were putting in your products was not what you thought you were putting in your products. So will you talk a little bit about that shift and how that compelled you into not just the product side, but the manufacturing side?
Absolutely. So when we originally started, we were using another manufacturer. It wasn't us. And back in the 2008, 2009, CGMP wasn't even a thing back
Explain
then.
what that is for us.
Certified Good General Manufacturing Practices. So CGMP is what all manufacturers have to be now, so that you have to follow those good manufacturing practice laws, or you're not supposed to produce product. So CGMP wasn't a thing. Manufacturers were able to kind of do whatever. The FDA, they created rules for the dietary supplement manufacturing system, and it's CFR 111 and CFR 117. And basically all they did was handed out a book that said, if you're going to be a dietary supplement manufacturer, you have to follow these rules. But ultimately, there's no one following up to see if those rules were happening to anyone. Maybe every 5 years or longer, they would come out and check a facility. So with no real guidance out there or oversight, the kids will play. And so you found that a lot back then. And there were very few manufacturers back then. So as we found out, I was creating a cookie for a friend of ours for his product line, and he was doing third-party testing for macros, so fats, carbs, and proteins. And his test results kept coming back saying, Devenee, these are really high in carbohydrates and low in protein. And so they started testing the raw materials and tested our protein and found out that our protein was a 60% protein and not whey isolate. And so we were like, okay, well, something's wrong here. And that's when we addressed the manufacturer. And of course, they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And, you show them the test results. And then we started moving to a new facility. When we went to the second manufacturer, in between there, we said, listen, we've got to raise money. We're going to open up our own manufacturing facility, and we're going to have ingredient integrity. So we started that process. We had a handful of angel investors, which were Sean's clients at the time. They gave us the money and invested in us. So we started building that facility out. We went to a secondary manufacturer, bought product, found out inconsistencies in color, inconsistencies in texture, aroma, all the things. We would third-party test it, and the protein would come back too low. So as we were still building our facility, Sean and I were learning how to formulate, getting samples in, trying to recreate our own products that were currently on the market. We went to a third manufacturer, same thing. Inconsistency in color, texture, aroma, protein percentage way too low. And then we eventually opened up our doors in March of 2011. We started manufacturing our own product, right? We got the ingredient integrity. We matched all of our flavors, and then quickly found out, I don't sell enough to keep the lights on. So we have to bring new clients in. And so Sean was always the networker, right? He would talk to people, find out, call brands, you having problems, and people were open. They were open to say, I think we're having problems. They'd send samples into us. We would test it, have to rework their flavors, rework their pricing, tell them what the true pricing of their product was, and then have to relaunch their brands. And some of these customers were on the market for a lot of years. So we quickly became known as the company that fixes problems. And we, from that time, have been heavy in R&D, and we're known for 95% or higher flavor matching, literally just by organoleptic, which is physically tasting a product and then using our ability to figure out what flavors those are and make it. So to this day, we've been very, very good at that.
It's really amazing, and I don't want to skim over the fact that if my math is right, in about 10 years, you had 2 kids, went back to school, became a chef, became a fishmonger, became a butcher, started exercising and making your own stuff, started selling that stuff, recognized that the people making that stuff were not making it honestly, then decided to start manufacturing the stuff that went into what you were making. That's not the path that everyone just says, yep, I'll go figure that out. What made you think you weren't just doing it behind your own product? You were actually challenging an industry, a nascent industry. Where'd that come from? Why did you think you could do that?
That wasn't the plan. It became the plan. We were so invested in knowing that the quality of our product should be here. It should be what it is. We were so invested in making sure that the market was able to receive what they were supposed to be receiving from us. So that drive for better products, better quality products, better tasting products, and really giving good nutrition to people is what brought us to that level. businesses are all about making money, but not all the time. I'm a big believer in if you can just be honest with people, give them a really good product, they'll take that ride with you and grow with you until your ride is over. And that's really what we did. We built a community before these communities really even happened. To this day, I'm not real big on social media or anything, but the minute I put something out there, my community surrounds me with love, questions, and anything that I could possibly want. So
I have to believe in that process. So you built a community that was really looking for something that you were offering, and that came from a really genuine space of what you were looking for,
yes.
right? But you had to have gotten pushback. You're displacing a handful of manufacturers, and I won't say nefarious, but at least a shady sounding industry. And you were coming in and saying, we're going to be transparent and we're going to be better. And it's probably going to be more expensive because it's higher quality. But what kind of pushback did you get?
We got a lot, right? So the pushback that we got was other manufacturers would get a little bit of upset when we would call them out and really call them out on what they were doing or explaining to their customers what they were doing, and then they would lose their customers. The raw material industry, it was really time that we lost there. There was no real pushback from them. It was, we got to find people to create this so we could sell it to you. So that just took time for that industry to kind of catch up to our thinking. And honestly, I started this company with $500, and grew it to what it is today. We didn't have the marketing money. Since we didn't plan to be a manufacturer, our investors, they probably would have given me marketing money, but we had to give me money to build a facility. So, we never really had those marketing dollars. So we missed the boat, so to speak. We would create it and put it out there. We just didn't have the impact globally, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have the impact out there. So other brands, as Natural caught on, we actually created Natural for many, many, many other brands. And we said, we're going to create for you because this is the way the world's going and you need to be on this train. And so that grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And so many new things were created out of there. And people with deeper pockets were able to push and do. But over time, we realized that we're not marketers. We were two people with one goal, and it was creating really good products and growing that business and selling that business. All the jagged ways that we had to change and turn and loop around made us a little bit of a different company. And yes, we kind of backtracked and went into contract manufacturing, and we still have our brands, but I don't think I would do it any other way. I had the ability to touch so many people, to give them opportunities to grow in their brand, to become better in the market and have a differentiator that made them special, and I'm hoping that their brands grew and grew and grew and, they became better people for it.
And talk a little bit about the evolution of the market and just your own thinking as you went through this process. You built a strong brand with About Time over years. At the same time, you were doing the manufacturing, not to mention basically creating a new market. At what point did you decide that the manufacturing was the way forward? And then you mentioned you weren't marketers and so forth, but tell me a little bit about that decision, because that is also not a small decision where you're kind of becoming the team behind the scenes, enabling other companies to do work with your level of values and your level of ethics, but it's not necessarily your name or your face or your brand that's out there that everybody's seen. Talk a little bit about that. And was that a difficult decision?
I don't think it was difficult, but direct to consumer was different back then. The tools that we had were nowhere near as sophisticated as they are now. The one real reason that we decided to go to manufacturing was truly algorithms on social media. They were ever turning over into something new. The amount of money we would spend just to acquire a new customer, it just kept rising and rising and rising, and it just became inefficient. And back then, direct to consumer and all of these ads and social media, I don't think anyone really had a handle on it. And so we chose manufacturing because we spent our time trying to figure out social media and the algorithms, and it just wasn't working. We were tired. And so that's really why we chose it.
At some point, you decided to look for a potential financial partner for the business. Will you talk about, and I know it took a little bit of time, so will you talk a little bit about why you started to think about a financial partner, particularly private equity, and then just a little bit of the story and the time you took to find the right partner?
Absolutely. As we became a manufacturer and we were growing the business, we got to a point where we were maxing out on our abilities to grow the company. And so we discussed, hey, we can be this, $25 million company or $26 million company forever, or we can go back to the original goal to create a brand, build a brand, and sell a brand. Our brand was just different now. And at that point, that was really the decision. Well, we got to go back to what we originally said. We want to build a brand and sell a brand and have somebody else take it over and make it an amazing brand. And so we started that look maybe around 2019. We danced around with a few PE firms, Shore Capital in particular. And so, then the pandemic hit and that kind of went away for a little bit for everybody. Shore Capital came back around just to say, hey, how you doing? Kind of sparked us out of our little lull there, kind of got us out of that lull of the pandemic because we were busy, right? The pandemic happened. We were making vitamin C out the wazoo and, zinc capsules. And we were really, really slammed with certain products at that point in time. But, they piqued our interest coming back around again. And then we always said, well, let's see what else is out there. And we took that time and we just weren't ready. We wanted to get the business to a little bit of a better state of what we were in. And, when we decided, and I think it was like late 2022, we said, we're ready. And I think January of 2023, we reached out to Shore Capital again and said, come back around, third time's a charm. And
what was it about in your mind? Because I'd love to get into the head of the founder in this conversation. What was it in your mind, post-pandemic and otherwise, where you were like, I think we're ready now? You've been thinking about it. You instinctively or otherwise knew you weren't ready prior to that. Do you remember what it was that made you go, no, I think now we're ready?
I don't know if it was an exact moment, but we were making money. We understood almost everything about that business. And we were honest with ourselves of, I don't know how much more we can do because we didn't have the skill set. And so it was, we need expertise brought in here. And we didn't want to just go hire random people and kind of say, do this. Our ultimate goal was to sell the company. And so that expertise came to us in the vision of a PE firm who's going to be able to invest their time, their resources, their finances, still give us the ability to say, we're going to still run this company, but almost be that protector for us to say, let me guide you and help you grow it. And that's truly what we wanted. We wanted to run our own business, but have that guidance on how to get it to the next step.
And I can't help but go back to your description of your grandmother's kitchen and the early products you were making just for your own nutrition, and then having the validation of others, and then recognizing all the challenges in the manufacturing that you've described and so forth. How did Shore end up being the right partner for you? What was different? You looked at a couple of others, and maybe related to that, what were some of the concerns and some of the flags that you were throwing up as you did this kind of research?
Yeah, the one thing I would say is I remember saying that you guys were always classy. Everything that Shore Capital did for us, there was a response to every action. As simple as they sent a bottle of wine, or they sent a Shore Capital shirt and hat, or a thank you, or inviting us somewhere. Everything was always closed off with some kind of remembrance of thanking us for our time to spend with them, not the other way around. And that's probably the most I take from Shore Capital right now is they're really thankful for the companies who want to come work with them.
Can you give us an overview of where SDC Nutrition is today? Just give us a sense of the size of the company, your size of your team, a little bit about your market, that's where you are a couple years into the investment.
Yes. So we're around 135 employees at this point, 52 million in sales, and we're moving into a brand new facility. So in order to grow and bring on more revenue, our current facility, we have limitations. And so we built a brand new facility from the ground up. We're in the process of moving at this point in time and really, really excited to get in there. We built that facility to be customer friendly. So there's conference rooms and lounge areas and kitchens for all of our clients, just so when they do come in, they're not out of sorts. They don't get behind on their work or running their businesses, and they're able to come into our facility, create new products, go over business, go over pricing, and do what they need to do and really not miss a beat.
If you enjoyed this episode, check out our other Microcap Moments episodes at www.shorecp.university/podcasts or anywhere you get your podcasts. Here you will also find our Bigger, Stronger, Faster, and Everyday Heroes series, each highlighting the people and stories that make investing in the lower middle market unique. This podcast was produced by Shore Capital Partners and recorded in the Andrew Malone Podcast Studio, with story and narration by Anderson Williams, recording by Austin Johnson, editing by Real Audiobooks, sound design, mixing, and mastering by Mark Galloop of Real Audiobooks. Special thanks to Devenee Schumacher. This podcast is a property of Shore Capital Partners, LLC. None of the content herein is investment advice, an offer of investment advisory services, nor a recommendation or offer relating to any security. See the Terms of Use page on the Shore Capital website for other important information.